Thanks, Linda. That's right, my name is Alia Eyres, and I'm the CEO of a local grassroots charity here in Hong Kong called Mother's Choice. And our work is about being a voice for the vulnerable, for children. Because the reality is we are living in a city that is creating generations of children in adversity. The theme of today's event is truth and dare. The plight of children in adversity is a truth that I think many of us here in Hong Kong know very little about. Well, I'm here today because I want to change that, and because I want to dare you to help change the destiny of children right here in our city. But first, we need to ask ourselves, who is the child in adversity? The reality is that children in adversity are all around us. The headlines on the screen right here next to me are all very recent, and I think they point to the enormity of the issue. I'm sorry to tell you that the truth is that 1 in 4 children right here in Hong Kong lives in poverty. 1 in 5 children in Hong Kong goes to bed at night without having had 3 meals that day. And there are tens and tens of thousands of children who are at serious risk and in neglectful and dangerous living situations. Today I want to focus on just one category of children in adversity, and that is children who are in the residential care system here in Hong Kong. And that means children that are in orphanages, children that are in foster care, children that are in small group homes. And I realize that you might be asking yourselves right now, how big of a problem is this really in Hong Kong? One of the most beautiful, modern, metropolitan cities in the world. Well, here's the truth for you. We know that there are almost 4,000 children living in full-time institutionalized care in Hong Kong from newborn to 18 years old. We also know that the need is growing. At the end of last year, there were almost 600 children on the wait list because of various crises at home. We also know that more than 60% of the applications to foster care alone are withdrawn, and that's usually because the wait is simply too long. We suspect that there are many, many more who are deterred from even applying because they know that there's virtually no chance for them to get in. Well, here's another truth. For those who are lucky enough to make it into residential care in Hong Kong, it is very likely that they will spend years and years in the system. And not only are children spending years in care, most of them will actually complete their entire childhoods without ever experiencing a permanent and loving family. Did you know that although 90% of the children who are in foster care are labeled for family reunion, which means they will never be released for adoption, more than 60% of them will never go to their birth family. And that means they will stay in institutionalized care until they're 18. Unfortunately, there's also a belief in Hong Kong that for these children who are growing up in an institution, that they're actually better off. They've got a roof over their heads, they have food to eat, they have a voucher to go to school. But the reality is, no institution, no matter how well run, can ever replace the safety, security, and love that comes from a permanent and stable family. I know these statistics are really overwhelming. And so I thought I'd share the story of just one child in adversity who spent his entire life in the system that I'm talking about. Max was born to a mother who was mentally unstable and physically abusive. By the time Max turned 1 year old, he was placed into a children's home. When he was 2 years old, despite evidence of extremely serious physical abuse, he was returned to his birth mother. Unfortunately, the abuse only grew worse. One vivid memory that Max shared with me is from when he was 4 years old, and it has always struck me. I'm actually expecting my third little boy, but my oldest boy is 4, the same age as Max from this memory. His mother grabbed him by the foot and dangled him off the balcony of their flat in their public housing estate, more than 20 stories from the ground, screaming at the top of her lungs, "I'm going to kill you! I'm going to kill you!" Fortunately, somebody reported that incident, and Max went back into care, and he began his extremely painful and long journey through 5 different foster care homes, unfortunately, some of which were abusive and neglectful. Although it was clear from the beginning that Max's mother was unstable, unwilling, and unable to care for him, Max actually wasn't released for adoption until he was 11 years old. And even then, his social workers, so busy and overwhelmed, didn't make any effort to process the paperwork that's necessary for him to join a permanent family until he was almost 16 years old. And by then, it was too late. Max aged out of the foster care system at 17 years old. He had no family to support him. He was completely alone and left to fend for himself. He was angry, rejected, and hopeless. And here's another truth for you. Max is just one of thousands of children just like him right here in Hong Kong. I know you're probably sitting here in this room thinking, so what? Why should I care? What does this mean, really, for children without families? What are the consequences for our community, for our city? Well, the truth is that the longer a child spends in institutionalized care, the more likely they are to suffer from long-term developmental delays. They are much more likely to struggle with antisocial behaviors and mental health problems. They are much more likely to do drugs, more likely to drop out of school, more likely to go to prison. And guess what? If they're a girl, they are much, much more likely to get pregnant between the ages of 12 and 18, and then the cycle begins again. And here's another truth. The cost of raising children in institutionalized care is huge. Our government spends more than $300 million a year on subvention funds, and this doesn't begin to include the figures spent by charities and other nonprofits, churches, NGOs like Mother's Choice that are caring for other children in adversity without government funding. This figure also doesn't begin to take into account additional funds that are spent to support generations of children and youth who are growing up to be homeless, unemployed, in prison, engaging in risky activities, and dependent on our welfare system. The truth and the scary news is that this is a vicious cycle. Children in adversity grow up to be adults who are much more likely to have dysfunctional relationships and struggle when they have their own children and families. If you don't remember anything else I say today, this is the truth I want you to walk away with. The families that we develop determine the communities and society that we live in. The families that we develop determine the communities and society that we all live in. Every child is special and deserves to have a loving, permanent, and stable family. When you give a child a family, you change their destiny. Every family is unique. It's love and commitment that builds families, not blood. And it takes a village to raise a child. These children that are waiting in institutionalized care in Hong Kong are not somebody else's responsibility. They're our community's responsibility. So what can we do? Well, if strong families are the foundation for the future of our children, then I want to dare you to help support the families in your own community, especially those who you can see are struggling, those who have fostered or who have adopted, those who have children with special needs, those who are single parents. Second, I want to dare you to change our culture. I think that we have a really misplaced belief in Hong Kong especially that culture is unchangeable. Well, I believe that culture can, and in some cases, quite frankly, should be changed. Just because something is cultural or part of our cultural heritage does not make it right. There are a lot of taboos in our culture. Taboos about crisis pregnancy, about sex education, about abuse and welfare issues for children, special needs, people with disabilities. I think that we need to start breaking some of these taboos and bring these important topics to the surface. I also believe that Hong Kong people really care. They just don't necessarily know about the issues, and that's why I'm here today. Finally, I want to dare you to be a voice for children in adversity. I just want to go back to Max's story for a moment. So many people interacted with Max over the years, and yet nobody ever said anything. Well, it is not just the social worker's job. There were teachers, neighbors, friends, community members, all of whom could have guessed, and many of whom did guess what was going on, and yet nobody stood up for him. Everybody thought it was somebody else's job. One of Max's foster mothers regularly left him for the whole day by himself in their local McDonald's because she couldn't be bothered to look after him herself. And nobody ever said anything. Max recently spoke at our child development conference, a room just like this, except full of social workers. And I asked him, I said, what would you like to say to the audience? And he took the microphone and he looked out and he said, don't be afraid to care. Don't be afraid to go the extra mile. And don't be afraid to be a voice for children. We are not just a case number. Well, I think we all have the responsibility to be a voice for children in our communities. Children like Max, who don't have anybody else going to bat for them. In my work, we're often told that cases are hopeless. But I believe in a different truth. I believe that we can have hope. And that's why I want to dare you, because I think you can change our community, to join hands with us and others who are caring for children in adversity. And let's transform lives and bring hope to our city. Thank you.